Right now, this is in the front end of the DEP system. It's an IRA, immediate response action. Kevin Douse deals with emergency response, emergencies, things that happen right away that need immediate action. Things are happening here that require immediate action. You guys are sitting there thinking immediate, it's been a year. When it moves beyond a year, a lot of times it goes into other departments at DEP, and they'll start really focusing on that long-term solution, whereas the immediate is a shorter-term solution. As we said, bottled water treatment systems, public water. I've talked about that many, many times. And Mr. Gagner is absolutely correct. Until the DEP puts down, lays their fist on the table and says you must provide bottled water, or public water.
And again, I know that you're answering, you're not going to be surprised at my answers, that I'm not happy with waiting. I'd like to see the board and the town of Charlton do more than wait for a notoriously slow public entity to rule on this.
With that, Will, I'm going to ask the other two members, John or Willie, do you guys have any suggestions, any plan B?
What I did is I went down to the Water and Sewer Commission a couple weeks ago, and I rode around the whole town. And I lived in town all my life. And I showed them where they could put, where wells can't be capped, and where the gravel things are, where they can put well fields, and where they can put pumps. I worked for Wake Construction, putting these water treatment plants in and all this stuff for years. And I spent the whole day running around the whole town to try to get the water into this town. I mean, and he was happy, the one that runs it,
Steve.
And he said, I never heard this before, out of nobody. But I spent all day going here and there and there, and they're working on it. But how far are they gonna get? They said, if I need me again, I said, why can't you just put, like even down the Southbridge, come down, get your water in, put a pumping station, put a tank in, and start somewhere. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And do this, dress a hill, everywhere there's a hill, put it in. I showed them where down to the Spencer line, Oxford line, where all the gravel is, like Webster, years ago, I put all the well fields in by hand, the pin. I mean, it can be done.
Right.
But to have anybody do it, nobody wants to get up and do it.
It's the money, is what it
It's
amounts
the
to.
money too, yeah.
Sure.
It's but
Even if-
this
even if-
town, I bet you if you went out and tested, not just up there, but test half the town and half of this town, you'd get about the same stuff that you're getting up there. Because over the years, like the well mill, how many times my parents, anybody else, thousands and thousands of barrels of dye went in there, and all these other things that happened in this town over the years. It's polluted all over the whole town. You know what I mean? We gotta get something going with the Water and Sewer Commission to hook up, but not just to Southbridge, we can go to Spencer, or Dudley's got all the water you need. And places like that, tie in, put the pumps in, and put the tanks up. And that's what we gotta do.
That's a plan.
That's what the
something
plan is
that I'm
gonna be.
looking for.
And I spent a lot of time with them, and they still can't, well, we're gonna get the money, who's gonna okay it? This and that, I mean, you got no.
And what you're talking about, Willie, is great if we can make it happen. We all also know that water is less than a quarter mile away from this particular neighborhood.
Right, and they're gonna
The-
put a
the
new,
easy
they're gonna put a
solutions.
new line down there right now.
Yeah.
Now, why can't they put it down there, put a pumping station in right there on the Charlton line, and then put a tank somewhere and take care of all you guys, you know what I mean?
For less
Time
than
out.
6 months worth of profits.
But you
They're
can't.
profiting about $2 million a month.
Yeah.
For $10 million, which is less than 6 months of profits, they could have what, they being Casella, could get water to us. And I personally think it'd be less than $10 million.
I think they gotta do something pretty quick.
John, you were saying something?
Well, I was wondering if, Willie, you're talking about coming up 169 where the current line already is, coming up
Right.
for the,
They gotta put a
ExxonMobil.
bigger line up there, cause they ain't got the volume. They got a small line running all the way to Charlton.
so it would be
And
coming
who's
up
paying
169.
for a lot of that? is that new brewery that's going up in
Treehouse.
on that, on Route 20.
Right.
They're gonna pay a lot of that, paying for that, putting that new line in. And that's gonna help.
And I know a lot of that negotiation was with Mobile Exxon, when they did their negotiation, I believe there was discussion about that expansion there. I mean, that's all a water sewer issue, and, you know, I don't have enough education to comment about that line. I heard the line was going in. I know they're doing work right now on Route 169, but that's not the water line being put in. They're doing drainage, they're doing other things. And now it's a conflict because if somebody else goes in to put a water line in right now, there's already a different contractor doing different work. So unless that contractor's, so it's a mess right now down there as far as getting that water line in. They talked about water flow down there, and it takes 7 days to get it, you know, from the Southbridge line to this building and stuff, and there's traces and all that. And I think, Gary, you and I talked about that before.
Because we don't have enough use.
So
Right.
We're talking about adding
there has been discussion.
55 homes.
Yeah.
There has been discussion. Technically, it's been looked at, engineering-wise, it's been looked at. I know the folks from Ty Bond looked at it. I know, I think Water and Sewers looked at it a little bit. I know that Southbridge has looked at it a little bit. So people have looked at it. It's not this board's group or to figure out the engineering. It can be done.
Correct.
And you guys have seen some, you know, there's been some ballpark numbers thrown out there. So to say nothing's being done is not true. Actually, people have looked at it, and people have said, certain people have said, we don't want to do it. So your point is, who's the next person you can look to get it done? So it's possible. I don't know, you know, where the word feasible comes in.
Mhm.
There is and I will tell you from the discussions I've had with the folks at Water and Sewer is, the biggest issues relate to putting long water lines in that are mandated to address fire protection as well. So you end up with large diameter pipes for long distances, which create stagnant water. And that's why a lot of places in town have water running. So the solution is simply get a whole bunch more homes connected. So part of that, you guys, is that, but you're also a very long line, because they will
3
not
miles.
allow a dead end. So,
Look at like years ago now, RH White Water. They had Whitensville, they put all the lines in there, and they charged the people. They did Uxbridge, they did Oxford, they did Southbridge. They put all the lines in, and they charged the people. Now why can't they do this to Charlton? Nobody invested. I mean, they went in and put these in, and they charged the people for the water. I know, I used to flush the lines out and everything else.
Can I move off of water for
Go
now? Is there any movement on the zoning of the basins? I know they were gonna name a new zoning officer, because Mr. Meskis bowed out. Have we got any new information on where that stands? And is Casella operating those basins, well, illegally, according to our zoning bylaws?
All right, so, and Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, if you know, or John or Willie, if you know, but, yes, we have a new zoning officer for that particular project. I don't know who it is, it's somebody from another town that's filling it. As far as the basins, there's been no change in how they've been using them. It's still business as usual with those basins. So again, I would say that basin conversation is a waiting game right now. It's very clear to DEP, our attorney, Casella, Southbridge, everybody involved in this knows that we have an issue with those basins. But there's no action step being taken at this time on it.
And again, forgive me for my ignorance here, isn't it? I mean,
Hold on.
it sounds pretty simple that this gentleman looks at our zoning laws, looks at the basins, decides yes or no, that they're zoned for that. If he says no, then doesn't the power of this board, doesn't it behoove you to go to Casella and shut their asses down?
I don't think it's that easy. And again, the middleman in that would be DEP. But what were you saying?
I did speak with Jim Philbrook last week on some of these detections that were coming across. And I believe he had a meeting at the site of the basins with the new zoning.
He did.
So there is action. So they're doing something.
Okay.
They were looking.
They're looking.
Right.
So I mean, to say that nothing's, I think that's.
Yeah. No,
there
you're
is
right.
action.
They took the zoning enforcement officer out and was trying to get him acquainted with the site.
I think that was within the last week.
Yeah, it was since the last meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So there is some action. And then I guess the zoning enforcement officer would make a determination.
If well, you want to call that action, they went out and looked at the site, so.
Again, it just seems like a really long process for someone to look at the regs and say yes or no, whether they're operating in compliance with our zoning laws or against our zoning laws.
It may be, and I can't say why, but if I was in a zoning officer's shoes, walking into this lion's den, if you would, the decision being made is a very legal decision. And if it was me, I'd make sure I got it right. You know, so I don't think it's gonna come right out and say, hey, this is it, yes or no, yet. I think there's probably behind the scenes going on, looking up MGLs and looking at past landfills, and I'm sure they're doing their homework on this particular issue because it's, all eyes are on it, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. John?
I have a few items I wanted to get to. Did you ever send a letter to the DEP about the 4-foot separation, asking them to do their
Yes.
due diligence on that? All right, and 59 H-foot, you said is getting water now? Mandatory water?
I was told as of the 18th of August, they
Okay.
provided bottled water.
They're a farm, they have horses, they board horses, they have a lot of animals.
Is that
How are-
Scott?
No, that's the marshals. How are they gonna get taken care of getting water to those animals?
I don't have an answer to that. I can
Because
ask.
that has to be looked at. I don't think DEP knows that. But they have to get water provided to those animals.
So they're on the mandated bottled water
Yep.
list.
So the
So
question is.
How much water do they need?
A lot.
How are they gonna provide it?
There's another farm on the street too, so if they become contaminated, that's gonna be another issue.
Scott's.
Yep.
How close is he? Real close.
They're very close.
He's a few houses down, yeah.
Across the street.
And now Mahan, right, one house from his house, it has all 6 chemicals. So. The other items I have is, did Paul Fox get in touch with you for that parcel?
Not with me personally,
Okay.
no. Have you heard anything? That's
I
that.
spoke with Mr. Doust, and he had a discussion with Mr. Fox.
Okay, that was gonna be my next question. All right, good. Okay. So you know what's in that barrel, right?
I have no idea what's in that.
Tar.
What was
It's
it?
just tar for a foundation.
Okay.
He does foundations. He has a company, does foundations.
Didn't it say Texas on it or something?
Yeah, they make tar.
Okay.
I looked online.
Texas Chemicals?
Yep. Yeah, it's not chemicals, it's just a barrel of tar.
The tar that you put on the outside of a foundation.
Which is on all our
seen
foundations.
Buried below ground,
Yeah.
which I would imagine DEP has said you can bury
Legal use.
illegal use.
Yeah. So,
Apparently
anyway,
it's a full
And the
drum.
barrel's not leaking.
Apparently
it's full
drum.
and
So
it's not leaking.
Not that I
he
went down
said.
there and
Yeah.
looked at it.
Hopefully they'll do some testing.
Yeah.
To confirm.
I would never trespass.
It's not posted, they said.
All right.
John?
So, in touch Paul Fox. You do know that 2 homes in Southbridge that were tested came up for 1,4-dioxin?
I do not know that.
Okay, they tested 15 homes. The public documents show that 2 of them came up with 1,4-dioxin, 0.088 and 0.097. And another one had toluene. And in January of this year, the midpoint test on 65, their POET system, had 2 CBOCs at J-hit concentrations, and the effluent had 3.
Did they change it after that?
I don't know,
'Cause we should
but
know. I have data in front of me through, let's take a look.
What
that
number was
was
that?
65. That was 1/2016. He actually had benzene on the output that was not a J-hit, and isopropyl benzene and toluene.
January?
Yep, and those were effluent. So that was after the 2 canisters.
I don't know if this table doesn't. They
So,
only gave me the raw
I mean,
table.
That's,
I don't have
that's
the
a
one with me.
concern.
Yeah, that is definitely a concern.
And I don't think that was the only
presume they
time he
changed-
had something on his mid.
Yeah, I presume they changed it after.
I would assume they did, yeah.
I don't have the exact dates of the information in front of me, but.
I thought it was weird because I don't think those were detected on the influent,
No, I know.
and
there
they were
was a
seen on the
goofy-
influent. So there was a weird test going on there, so I don't know what really happened.
Really?
Jay, could you explain that a little better, the effluent input?
So you got the 2 tank system we were talking about.
Mhm.
They checked his influent
Yep.
coming in and all the chemicals.
Yep.
They checked between the 2 tanks, and they had 2 J hits of naphthalene and toluene. And then the effluent had toluene, benzene, and isopropyl benzene
But the.
on the output going
on
to the home.
output, But the input didn't?
I'd have to look at the chart again to see if those were actually there. It was kind of a weird
If
test.
that's
Didn't know.
possible, with dealing with what I've been asking about, there's your slippage.
Right, that's what he's saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just
Well-
want to get everybody on the same page if
Yeah.
you're seeing this.
No, that was weird because they didn't say they had the mid and the effluent other than toluene in the influent. So the benzene they didn't even say that they had on the input
In the input, but they had it on the,
effluent.
On the
Yeah,
effluent.
which is I don't know what's going on there.
Yeah, how's that happen?
I don't know.
yeah, unless it's slipping.
Or
For
there,
lack of
there
better
may have been a
term.
problem with the test. If they didn't have it on the influent,
Yeah,
Yeah, if you don't have
it's
it.
kind
can't
of
get in.
weird.
I know.
So something needs to be looked at with the system and the
Well, and
testing.
that, again, the concept of the monthly testing is you
Mhm.
look at that data, if there's an issue, you address it.
Mhm.
So there was obviously an issue. It was obviously apparently addressed because the next month's, that was January, I haven't seen anything come across.
I'd have to look them up. I don't know.
I checked them quickly, I didn't see anything, so. And that was right after, it was only installed in, I think it was installed in January or December, so that could have been one of the initial ones.
Okay.
I don't know.
Any other questions from the audience? Anybody have anything to say?
Now, what is the criteria for having a public system put in a home?
At this point, DEP's position, I believe, it's not written right now, is if you have chlorinated volatile organic compounds in your home at confirmed detections, the DEP regulations say if there's a feasible solution, you must implement it. Carbon treatment is feasible, so it must be implemented.
We're at 66, what are the ones that have the
You're,
higher detections we see?
you're probably very close to getting a public system.
Well,
You know, the whole thing with the bottled water and that is like, and the whole thing is, it's such a false sense of security. Like, we had the bottled water as a courtesy, okay? Well, you know, our stuff wasn't that high, and we have an ice machine, so I wasn't buying ice. We were at like 0.09 or something, some ridiculously low number. So I'm eating ice, you know, I'll take ice out of the refrigerator and stuff. And I've been having it every day, ice in my drinks and stuff. Then we get the thing in July, and then it dawns on me, we've been eating ice with all this stuff in it. And it's like, in the filtration systems, well, they're kind of working on most of the time, but what if you're that 2% and it doesn't work? Or what if you're the people that aren't getting the bottled water because they don't have anything, and then they go a whole month, and all of a sudden they get tested, and now it's skyrocketing. I mean, for a month, or how many ever periods that we weren't tested, it's there. It's just, it's not a good feeling, and it's just not great to think that this is a situation for possibly 5 years. You know, who's gonna get sick because of something they didn't know about?
and that's what
I mean,
this board is trying to do, to the best of our ability, is just, this is the best we can do. This, you know, his courtesy bottled water, for those people that don't legally have to get that, it's something. And we just saw in the data that came back, one of the houses on there was eligible for the courtesy bottled water and they weren't receiving it.
yeah.
And it's like, you know, hindsight, maybe they'd take it, maybe they wouldn't, you know, but it's something. you
But
know.
it kind of goes back to this, well, nobody wants to put the money up to get a suitable, action done
Yeah.
to correct this. And it's like, well, maybe my life isn't worth $5 million, but
Mm.
kind of to me it is.
Yeah.
If it was your kid, would you pay $5 million to save your kid's life? I think a lot of parents would.
The thing with the money is, and Gary, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's not 5 million for your system, or it's not 5 million for my system. It's,
Oh,
We're
it's
talking
the
about a
overall.
water line.
but it's overall.
Right, right.
So, I guess it's like anything, but, if it was my kids, I would probably do whatever it took to finance it myself, knowing that the long term may be more than I'm willing to accept. Right or wrong, if I could afford it, that's what I would probably try to do. And that's not an option for everybody. And this courtesy bottled water program, it's supplementary. It's not, here's all the water you could possibly use this month. It's bare bones minimum, here's something, it's better than nothing. And some people may need that more than others. But it's really the best we can do as a board at this point. And we're reaching to keep it going the best we can.
It's just a real crappy feeling to know that you have water
Yeah,
and you just can't drink it.
That's
It
right.
comes down to that. You can't drink it. We have a dog that loves playing in the sprinkler. Sorry, dog, can't do that anymore. I guess if you had kids, you're looking at Phil swimming, sorry, can't do it anymore.
Mhm.
You just can't take the risk,
Mhm.
but you have there's just no solution there for you.
I tell everybody I say, test your water, test your water. Well, it ain't gonna
Well,
cost
these
anything.
tests are $1,000 a pop.
Yeah.
And it was, you haven't tested today, and all of a sudden it comes through next week.
Yeah.
$1,000 didn't tell you tomorrow you got bad water.
I made all my kids test this, I made them. I said, just do it.
We're faced with now, I said, I bought water for my swimming pool. And through evaporation, I'm faced with, to fill it, I'm gonna have to use the well water. I'm one of the happiest people when it rains,
Mm.
because that helps fill the pool, and I don't have to put well water in. I mean, it sounds trivial, but it's that critical to us, that we don't even want, I don't care what the studies say. And probably putting a few hundred gallons of well water into my pool wouldn't affect us, but in good conscience with children playing in that pool, I just can't do it.
Mhm.
So I totally empathize with Cindy, what she's talking about.
Mm.
It's, you can't go to your refrigerator to get ice cubes. You can't go to the water on the door and get water out of it's little things.
Yeah.
Over a year, it becomes a big thing.
Will, I have a question
I've
for you.
worked for 35 years in the chemical industry. I've worked in fume hoods and worn gloves and respirators. And now to think that the contamination that I'm exposed to is coming out of my own faucet,
Mm.
I think it's like,
Mrs. Sanborn?
Was it you who brought up previously at a meeting regarding the concentrations of chemicals that were greatly enhanced by the introduction of chlorine into the swimming pool?
1 in 4 is one of those.
Did you get a response back from the state? Because as I recall, they said that they were going to go off and look at
The
that.
state was gonna look at it.
I got a response.
You have a?
You
Yeah,
did?
I
What was
I
it?
thought that it had to be under extreme heat for them to be combined and produce those side chemicals.
That's right, and it was
So it's,
over,
that's not something we would
right.
have happen in our pool most likely.
What is it, what's considered extreme heat?
Didn't say. My water gets up to 86.
Okay. Just curious, because I
Yeah,
remember that at the meeting, I
Yeah.
think we were in the Board of Selectmen's room, and the gentleman from the state had driven in from pretty far away, and
Yeah.
he said he was gonna get back, so.
Yeah, that was, John's right, I remember that conversation now, that
Yeah.
it needed to be heated to,
Yeah.
I don't know what extreme is, because they didn't really give us a number.
Sir?
I have a question. Last time we talked, we were talking about Flint Road. Is the water there getting any better?
I can't say the water's getting any better, but that's gonna be a different discussion, so we can talk about that in a little bit. To answer your question, it's not getting worse.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was looking.
Yeah,
Making sure it wasn't getting worse or
yeah.
not changing in any way.
No, that's on, that will be next after we switch off for the H-Foot Road discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Anything else, you know,
Thank you for letting us, Ben.
wish we could do more for you as a board,
I
you know?
believe you're doing everything you can, and
Mm,
those awards you gave out tonight should have been to you.
Thank you. I know it came across the wrong way to some of you, and that was not our intent by any means. And I apologize if anybody took offense to that, because that wasn't meant to be that way, so.
I know what you were doing, it just leaves a bad taste in our mouths
Mhm.
to credit them with anything at this point.
Mhm,
It's very hard for us, we're human,
mhm,
we blame this all on the landfill,
yeah,
right or wrong.
yeah.
In our heart of hearts, we know every contamination that has shown up is in that landfill,
Mhm,
and
It's a much higher
it's
concentration.
way higher concentrations.
mhm.
It's not coming from Millennium Power, it's not coming from ENCOM. If you look at the topographical maps of where the bottom of the landfill is, where Millennium is, where our wells are, they're higher than us.
Oh, yeah. Oh, we
You can
know.
do all the geological studies and make them appear to be in their favor, but the reality is, if you just cut it across, you can see where they are, where we are, where 169 is.
And I guess the position of the board is, and I know the numbers changed this week, me and Gary talked about it, but Casella was doing something for 20 residents that they didn't have to do legally. And that's what that was about,
I
you know?
get that.
And that's what that was about. Since the new data, now it's down to 15 or what we're talking about, but that's what that was about, and, you know, so.
It's just a tough pill for us to swallow, that's all.
Yeah, we didn't do that, you know, that was in the best interest of the residents, and it came across the wrong way. And I see both sides of it, you know, and we
I do
didn't.
too.
Yeah, and we didn't mean to disrespect any resident by doing that by any means.
I appreciate that.
Okay, if there's nothing else on that discussion, we're gonna move on. And next on the agenda is going to be the Flint Road water discussion. Gary, I know you're
Get that one too.
for that. I guess the big news is you did some testing at the number 90 Flint Road landfill, the capped landfill,
Yes.
and you had some data come back on that?
We just got it back on Friday, and literally just got the data tabulated before I got here. Basically, the concentrations that we found of some VOCs are, in most cases, less than what was found in your last sampling event out there in 2014. No changes, no DEP notifications, nothing like that. The data is in draft. I have data tables here. There are chlorinated VOCs, and there is 1,4-dioxane detected out there again. For example, that well MW2SR, back in 2014, it was 12, and I came up with a 4.6. But there were, you know, other VOCs, and we were about the same concentrations.
Gary, how often will you be testing the wells there?
So your post-closure monitoring plan requires testing on a semi-annual basis. So that's what we'll be doing. Actually, I have a copy of the post-closure monitoring plan requirement here, the testing.
I'm sure it's been brought up, I just couldn't remember.
No. So the thing that is, I have to go through this data. We'll provide a report to you guys with recommendations. At this point, I don't think anything is going to change. Again, the post-closure monitoring report documents what should be done for the 30 years after the landfill is closed. And the only way you would change that if there's something significant. And this concentration is, this data is very similar to the old data.
Okay.
So we'll just kind of continue along on the same path. There are no triggers here to, again, notify DEP or require any sampling of drinking water wells. That's a discussion for the board. There are no detections within 500 feet of a drinking water well.
What about the two houses that were tested previously?
So let's clarify. I'm talking about 90, I'm talking about the
Oh,
capped
okay.
landfill.
All right.
So the capped landfill data is in, no triggers to DEP, data's consistent. We could transition into, that's
Only if
90.
you're done, only if you're done with that.
I am in that. One more thing I wanted to talk
Mhm.
about on this landfill is, in the landfill monitoring program that's approved, it actually talks about the maintenance that's allowed to be done in the drainage swales. It talks about if you get more than 50% built, 25% buildup of debris in the basins that will affect their ability to drain, it should be removed and taken care of. So what we'll do is, when I do the inspection this fall with Jim, we'll use this criteria to make a determination. It talks about the swales, it talks about removal of weeds.
So they just pull it out, they can't use chemicals?
It's very vague. The plan says maintain them. So we need to talk about that. But the important thing is, there is some parameters in here that say when maintenance is definitely required. So we need to comply with those, because this plan has been submitted, and DEP has approved this, and you as a board have said you're gonna comply with it. So, right now, I believe you're in general compliance with it. So, moving forward, maintenance is something we can change over time. So if there's no questions on 90, the capped landfill, 54, the Old Town dump. The only change there is we sampled 15 Old Town Road. I don't think we talked about that at the last meeting. I don't think that data was available. So 15 Old Town Road was sampled at the request of town. And so it's more than 500 feet from the house at 63 that has a detection. 63 Flint Road has a detection. This is more than that, but it's a town-owned property, and it's the dog kennel, and it's the town garage. So we tested it, not town garage, town storage yard, non-detect for 1,4-dioxin, and it had a toluene hit of 0.9. Talked to DEP and said tioluene's not a contaminant concern at the landfill. Tioluene's kind of prevalent in drinking water wells from the PVC piping or the electrical tape, we're not sure, or the electrical conduit. So DEP has not mandated any additional testing.
Just to clarify, there's a detection of 0.9, is the standards 1,000?
1,000. Okay. So, again, it's beyond the 500-foot radius, wasn't mandated to be tested. We tested it as a conservative approach. So we also tested the highway barn, which is about more than 1,000 feet from the capped landfill. I'm sorry, more than 1,000 feet from the old landfill at 54, and it's about 700 feet from the 90 Flint Road capped landfill, and that one's clean. So the only two issues that we have are 63 and 59 Flint Road, both of which are provided bottled water at this point. Both of which will be retested at a minimum of 3 months out, maybe at 2 months.
These houses are still for sale.
I believe both houses are still for sale. And one of the houses has again, a toluene detection. I want to say 0.7, but it had 1,4-dioxin, had the other house is TCE.
Gary, in your opinion, we talked, before we did this water testing in the 54 Old Town dump, you know, this board had a concern, you know, what's our dump like? We wanted to establish a voluntary well testing program similar to the one we learned about on the other side of town. Basically, you suggested, let's start with our own wells, and we go from there, because that tells 90% of the story, and 95% of the story. So we did that. With that being completed, and we know where we stand now with both of our landfills, what do you think this board should be considering for a voluntary program, if any, for residents involved. I'm talking Flint Road we know, but we also have Burlingame Road on the low side of that.
So I recently came across a 2010 document, a site assessment done by AECom for you guys, which you couldn't find a copy of it here, but DEP gave me a copy and I just gave the disc to you guys, so you guys now have an electronic copy of that. That included testing of, I think, 6 homes on Flint Road with no issues.
What year?
2010.
Okay.
So you guys now have an electronic copy of that document. And that testing was included in there, and there was recommendations, and the recommendations, I believe, said no further action recommended on that.
Just who drove that test? Because it wasn't Charlton Board of Health. Was that through different offices in the town?
I believe that is actually directed to the Board of Health, that report.
I think we asked for one
We did.
back then, yes.
Okay.
I thought I was the one that said, let's find out
Mhm.
what the rules are.
So that was before my time, so that's why I didn't think it was us. Now, you and I have talked a few times about how often should we test certain things. Last question on a different issue throughout 2 years. 3, maybe 2's better. We're talking 6 years on those now. So, I'm not trying to persuade you to do anything. I just want your honest opinion. Do you think that we should be considering doing further testing?
So of the 6 or 8 homes that were tested on Flint Road, in the last month or 2 months, we've tested 4 of those. 2 of them have issues, 2 don't. Actually, we tested, 4 of those. In most cases, you normally sample homes proximal to the landfill, and you do them on usually an annual basis, sometimes a biannual.